Hello my lovely friends, and welcome back to my channel, which, if you don't know, is the Layla and Nour show. I am Nour. I am one half of this show. However, if you've watched the last few videos, you will know that it has been only Nour. In case you are wondering why, it is because Layla is indeed in China. She has 2 vlogs from her time in China. She's studying abroad, which means that they've split up the twins. But it's heartbreaking to be away from Layla for so long. However, she's coming back next month, and I already have so many videos planned for us. She doesn't know that yet. She will find out by watching through this video. Today, I thought it would be really fun to discuss my favorite books of 2025. I was originally going to wait until December ends and then do this in 2026, and then I got too excited going through the books I've read this year, and I was like, I'm going to do it now. So let's get started. Originally, I was like, I'm not going to stick to any number because numbers aren't real. So I'm not going to do my top 10 or my top 15. Those rules don't apply to me. So I'm going to do my top 13. These are not in order, so don't think they are. I love all these books dearly. I may love some more than the rest. But it's like a mom saying I love all my babies equally. That's not true.
None of it's true.
It's really not. Some have more sentimental value, some have a story behind them. So let's just get started. I am gonna say that when I was making this video originally, it was gonna be a top 10, so these were gonna be my honorable mentions, but I'm just gonna mention them as favorites as well. I am gonna start with one that I love dearly. Yeah, I was seriously traumatized by, so I think we should get it out of the way before we start talking about more lighthearted, happy books. Sunrise on the Reaping. Originally this wasn't going to be on the list because I don't look at it and I think favorite. I look at it and I think ripped my heart out. But then this cover, I feel like I just want to brag about owning this. My other sister Lara and I did buy this for our little sister as a gift, but it's ours now. This is the 25th Hunger Games, so it is the first quarter quell, and basically there are double the tributes. There are 48 tributes instead of 24, 2 boys, 2 girls from each district, and they all get sent into the arena, and only one can come out, and it is a beautifully heartbreaking story about rebellion and resistance, and how resistance does not happen overnight, and there are many failed and squashed resistance movements and rebellions that have been absolutely destroyed by the people in power. And it is so powerful, but also the whole time I was reading it, I couldn't help but think that I think that's what Suzanne Collins wants you to think, that this is so real life. It by no means felt fictional. Yeah, I'm reading it and I'm like, this is exactly what's happening on our TV screens, and I couldn't disconnect these two, and I think that's good. There's this one scene which I think is one of the very final scenes before the victor comes out of the arena, and it is just I actually didn't cry reading this book because the whole time I was just numb, just lying down in bed and just thinking about how we have made it this far as humanity and still allowing certain things to happen. And I was thinking a lot. And the whole time, I didn't cry. I was just appalled and horrified. But yeah, this is, as a book, as a piece of fiction, as writing, as storytelling, it is some of the absolute best I've read in my life. But yeah, you just it's so profound, and you can't separate this real life sadness from the fictional sadness, which is why I wanted to mention this first and kind of get it out of the way, because I do want to acknowledge the very real life events that have inspired this book. On a much lighter note, we have another book which originally didn't make the list, and then I walked into my room and I saw it and I went, I read this one this year. How did it not make the list? We have First Time Caller by becca borison. Mother. If you follow me on Instagram, if you've watched my most recent videos, I've mentioned this book many times. I love it dearly. I did mention also in one of my recent videos that I bought the physical copy after reading the ebook, so I only have a few scenes at the end noted, but I love these scenes so dearly, and I really want to do a physical read of it. And I feel like this is one of the books that one day somebody will like ask to borrow, and it'll be battered and tattered from all the reads I've done for it, and I want to like lend it to all my friends and have them read it. It's about Aiden, who is a radio show host, and he kind of struggles with his mental health and with his perception of love and what he believes love to be and to look like because of his parents' relationship. It's not... I'm gonna be mean for a second, okay? Sometimes I'm reading a book and there's this like grown man who's like, my parents got divorced at 7 and I don't believe in love, and I'm just like, be serious. Like, kind of like, sometimes I'm just like, grow up. Can I say that? Is that mean? Aiden felt very, very real, and I was like, you know what, you're valid, and your fears and your concerns are real. And then we have Lucy, she's a single mom, but her kid's dad is very, very present in her life. They're absolute best friends. The dad's partner is also, they're all best friends. Like, she has a community around her. She has people that she loves very dearly, but she still is missing that romantic love. She makes me think of Jo, that scene in Little Women where she goes, but I'm so lonely.
But I'm so lonely.
And I feel like that describes Lucy really well, because yes, she is so fulfilled with her community and with her baby. Well, her baby's a teenager, and with her job and her family and all that, but she still is seeking that romantic love that she deserves so much. And so her kid Maya actually ends up calling Aiden and asking him to kind of set her mom up on blind dates through the radio show, and they end up having like a segment on the show where Lucy comes in and co-hosts and answers calls and stuff like that. And I just love this book so dearly. I think BK Borison writes humor really well. She writes such real characters. Like, the whole time I'm rooting for the whole entourage. Sometimes there are too many characters in the book and I'm just like, not this one. Every time a new character walks on screen, I'm just like, yeah. On screen, on page, I was just like cheering. I was like, tell me more about them. My next honorable mention is a assistant to the villain, and this book is pretty special to me because I've been wanting to read it for a very long time, and then I went on prac, so like my student placement for teaching, and the very first week I taught was so rainy and so cold, and the whole time I kept on saying, oh, I want to be at home curled up with a book. And then my mentor teacher said, that's exactly what I'm doing this weekend, because a new book in my favorite series is coming out. So while you, like me, are gonna be planning and prepping for teaching, I'm actually gonna be reading my favorite book. And I said, which one is it? And she said, Accomplice to the Villain, which is book 3 in the Assistant to the Villain series. And I went, that's crazy, I've been wanting to read it for so long. So on my last day of prac, she actually gifted this to me, which is very, very special. I actually ended up meeting Hannah recently, which was so cute. Wait, insert clip. For the vlog, they're yelling at me for taking up too much. I met her and Stacey McEwen, and I got these signed. I got a signature for me, and then I even got a copy of the book. Is right there for my cousin, because she ended up reading it after me and loving it. This follows Evie, a kind of down on her luck girly whose dad has this like magical mystical illness that nobody can find the cure for, and she has a little sister to care for, and she ends up stumbling into the villain. Their town is a kingdom, and there's the villain, like he's known as the villain, and she ends up running into him in the forest while he's being chased by the king's valiant guards, and he ends up offering her a job as his villain, and chaos ensues. It is the most ridiculous, funny, silly book with emotional depth to it, which is exactly what I'm looking for, clearly, in my books. I just really, really loved it. I will say that I loved books 1 and 2 equally. I did have a bit of a problem with book 3, which I felt it was a bit long for my liking. It was one of those cases where there were too many characters with their own side plots and their own side quests, and I'm just like, what's going on? But I love this one, and then I'm going to move on to my final honorable mention, which is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. I struggle to describe this book because I always end up talking too much about but this book basically follows Sarah, who is a very, very powerful witch. Like, witches these days, they're not incredibly powerful. Most of them can just cast a simple spell, like to keep the heating on, stuff like that, but she is incredibly powerful, and so she kind of poses a threat to, can't remember his name, it might have been Albert, who's the head chancellor of the magical society of witches, and so he doesn't like her. This is literally the prologue, I'm not spoiling. When she is 15, her aunt, who is her carer and the only person who kind of loves her and gives her what she needs in her life, passes away suddenly, and a talking fox tells Sarah about a very powerful spell that can revive the dead. However, it is forbidden. But also Sarah's probably the only witch alive who can cast it because she is that powerful, and so she ends up choosing to cast the spell and bring her aunt back to life. This has serious repercussions. She ends up getting exiled from the witch society. It's like the exact opportunity that the chancellor was waiting for, and nobody's allowed to speak to her or else they also get banned. Yeah, the book starts after the prologue with 30-year-old Sarah, who now runs this inn magically, but she has such little magic left because the spell drained most of what she has. She is no longer a threat to anybody. However, when she was little, she also apparently accidentally cast a spell on her inn, and only people who are in need end up finding it. So we do end up following a cast of characters. We have a knight, we have an elderly queer couple, and we have Luke, my beloved, who has a younger sister who is on the autism spectrum, and they're both witches, and the witchy society does not welcome his sister at all. Is very avoidant when it comes to demands. She doesn't like being told what to do. Very regular autism behavior, and nobody at that school accommodates her. So Sarah's aunt ends up kind of tutoring his sister, and they go on many quests to essentially try to take the chancellor down, but to also try and find a spell that can bring Sarah's magic back, because as she's losing it, you gotta remember that it also protects the inn, so that is waning, and you need to figure out a way to fix it all before it's all gone. This book is honestly really, really funny, like laugh out loud. Also, the talking fox is still there. But yeah, this book is just hilarious, and you should all go read it right now. Okay, now we're technically entering what I've dubbed as my top 10 books of the year. However, ranking these is absolutely moot, so we're just gonna start. Say a Little Prayer by Jenna. I can't remember her last name. Apologies, guys. The book follows Riley, who ever since she's come out, she has kind of been exiled as well from the church, and her parents have also taken the decision to leave the church in support for their daughter. However, she gets into trouble at school, and they figure out that the best punishment for her is to send her to church camp. It was either that or to be cut out of the Shrek musical, so she decides to go on camp. The camp is a week long, and she decides that this is the perfect time to attempt and commit all 7 sins. 7 days, 7 sins. The only problem is that this church camp is run by Pastor Young, who hates Riley. And the bigger problem is that his daughter Julia is Riley's best friend, and they may or may not have feelings for each other. The book is hilarious, genuinely cackled multiple times throughout the book. It is like, do you know when you're reading a book and somebody is so stereotypical yet not a caricature? Like, Pastor Young is that homophobic, ableist jerk. Felt real. He felt like an uncle I could have. I also, like, a small thing I wanted to know is that the book has title chapters, which is something that I love, and I think this book does title chapters so well. It does angry, queer teenage girls so well. So perfect. It's the perfect book for me. My next book is Oathbound by Tracey Deonn. This is book 3 in the Legendborn series, and if you know, you know. I'm so bad at describing sequels because I don't know how to describe them without spoiling. So the books are kind of an Arthur retelling, like a Sword in the Stone retelling, where there's this secret society on this university, and all of them are descendants of Arthur and his knights. There's the people around them, like the society that runs things. There's, like, you know, there's politics of it all. I don't think I know what the books are about. I know it's about Arthur, and I know it's about Bree, and I know it's about Nick, and I know it's about Sel, and it has some of the most fascinating mythology. It has some of the most brilliant, beautiful, heartbreaking storytelling. It has writing that makes me want to tattoo it on my forehead, and it's magic, both in the literal and the figurative sense. There's also incredibly powerful commentary on race, and I just pulled this out, by the way, like, I didn't just, like, whoop. And what it means for Brie to be one of the very, very few Black people in the secret society that's predominantly rich white people. And that she's also discovering many different kinds of magic that she had never thought could be real. There's root magic, there's blood magic, there's, like, Arthur magic descended from them, and, you know, each knight used to have, like, a special power that has descended through the line to their current bearer. The book, this is not Oathbound, this is Bloodmark, by the way, this is book 2. The book also tackles grief so well. So book 1 opens up with Bree losing her mother, and she always talks about how there's a before and an after for her and what life has looked like. And Bree's so young, she's 17, so she's trying to discover what life is now without her mom. But there are also other people that are grieving who they thought their parents were or who they thought their friends were. There are all different kinds of grief, whether it's actually people that have passed away or what you thought was real. There is massive plot twist. I do want to say something funny. So I've read the original story of Arthur. I've watched many retellings of it. I've watched Merlin many times. Layla and I actually have like an Arthur joke. If Layla's watching, she'll know what this is about. There are 2 big plot twists at the end of book 1, and fun fact, my best friend Chelsea is the one who introduced these to me. And when I was reading book 1, I was at like 70% or something, and I said to her, wouldn't it be so funny if like beep happened? And she replied with, haha, that would be really funny. And then it happened. And I texted her and I was like, oh my god, I'm so smart. And she still brings up how like she panicked so bad when I texted that to her. She's like, how did you know? And it's like, I'm just so smart. But also, if you've read the books, like, you might be able to connect it, you might not. Personally, when I am reading such books, I choose not to connect the dots. Like, I don't really think much about it because I like to be surprised. I think if I do put enough effort into it, I can figure out these plot twists, but I don't want to. My next book is I Am Not Jessica Chen by Anne Liang. So I Am Not Jessica Chen follows Jenna Chen, who is the cousin of Jessica Chen. And Jessica is this perfect girl, perfect grades, perfect beauty, perfect everything. And Jenna is not, in comparison. And so she has always felt very inadequate next to her. She's always compared herself to her. Other family members have also done comparisons between them. Both of them have parents that have, like, you know, the typical high Asian standards that they've had to meet, and Jessica has met every single one while Jenna has not. And so Jenna one night makes a wish to be Jessica, and she wakes up as Jessica. Now, this book, I find that Anne Liang does teenage romances so well that sometimes I'm like kicking my feet and I'm like, it's a teenager. Wait, is that weird? Am I getting castled? But slowly, as the book progresses, Jenna starts to fade, and she needs to make sense of like Jessica and Jenna and as 2 separate people and how to try to bring them back together. Full honesty, I don't really remember too much details about the book. I just remember that I really loved the writing, I loved the romance, I loved the friendships in this book, and I remember very clearly that there was so much art in this book because Jenna's an artist. She draws a lot and she paints a lot, and that actually ends up being like a big plot line, and I love that. I love art in books. It's also like one of my favorite things about Julian from the Shadowhunters Chronicles. If you know, you know. Moving on, we have The Wedding People, which is it's funny because I didn't know anything about The Wedding People going in, and boy was I shocked. So this book follows Phoebe, who is divorced, out of a job, and she cannot write her PhD for the life of her. So she has kind of faded into the background of life. She doesn't really, figuratively I'm speaking, she doesn't really exist anymore. She feels like she's just somebody passing by who doesn't matter. And so she ends up going to a pretty expensive hotel that she's been wanting to go for her whole life, and she's always told her husband, oh, we should go there, but they never went. And now she is incredibly sad, and because nothing matters to her in life, she ends up going to that hotel to attempt to end it all. I don't know how much I can say on YouTube. And then when she checks in, it ends up that the hotel is completely booked out for a wedding, and her booking was a mistake, so she has the only room in the entire hotel that is not for the wedding people. And she ends up running into the wedding people, and she meets the bride, and the bride asks her, oh, what brings you here? You're the only non-wedding people here. And she says, I'm here too. And the bride's like, no, you are not allowed to do that on my wedding weekend. Like, that is so not allowed. You're now invited to the wedding. And she gets roped into all those crazy wedding events, and she may or may not hit it off with the groom. There is no cheating in this book, which is usually, like, that's a deal breaker for me. I do not like cheating. I don't. But the writing in this book is what stood out to me. The plot is not the greatest, most life-changing thing, but we are reading the book and we are following this world through Phoebe's lens, who is a researcher, and it shows in every single word that is written in this book. You or for me personally, I could feel the love and intention that the author has put in to create this book, and that is something that really stood out. And there's this one scene about Phoebe talking about how when she's doing her PhD, she talks about all the steps that Jane Eyre takes in the book Jane Eyre. I'm just like, I don't like, there are so many niche references to like history and literature and art, and again, I love that in books, and I may have related a bit too much to Phoebe. We next have This Woven Kingdom, and I actually read the first 3 books in the series this year, but I will say This Woven Kingdom is the one that stood out the most to me. There are currently 4 out of 5 books out. I haven't read the 4th because I'm still spacing them out, but this book follows Elise, who is a descendant of jinn, which are like the fallen angels, and they now coexist in the world as jinn and clay, which are humans. What can I say without spoiling? She is basically living in hiding. She appears to be very eloquent and well spoken and well read. However, she is living in hiding as a servant, which is very confusing for many people, and she ends up running into Kamran at one point, who is the crown prince of the kingdom that she lives in, and he is very confused by why this very well-educated woman is living as a servant. So he kind of flags her as like maybe she's a spy from another kingdom. Basically, the book includes this big prophecy, and Elise might be a big part of it. That's all I'm gonna say. I love the storytelling, I love the writing. This is actually the very first tahereh mafi book that I finished since 2018. It's just crazy. I've not been able to finish any of the Shatter Me books, but this one was so up my alley. It's also very clearly inspired by like Persian Arab culture. I'm getting messages from BK Borison on her channel. Not personally, we're not like that. I wish we were. Like, the culture was so present. It was like another character. We don't meet a certain character until the very end, but he's my favorite in the series so far. I had to mention him since he's not in book 1, but I do love him. I also love Elise. I feel like I don't see enough people loving Elise. She deserves all the love in the world. I do have a reading vlog for book 2 if you want to watch it. A bit of an update. I may or may not have eaten something I'm allergic to, and so we had a bit of an emergency health situation. If you can see a light sheen of sweat on my forehead, but we're back. If the like angles changed or something like that, that is why. Apologies. I don't remember what it was like before. I'm hoping this is the best. This will not come as a surprise to anybody who has been listening to me speak at any given point in time in this year. The most famous girl in the world. We love America! This, I believe, was my 2nd book that I read this year, and wow, like what luck to have loved that book so much, even though I read it so long ago. This follows Rose, who is a journalist who basically uncovered this woman for being a fraud, and she ended up putting her in jail. But now she's out of jail, and she's the most famous girl in the world. She is. It's funny. I actually said this way back in January, and I'll say it again. If Ellen were here, this girl would be over. She would have gone on the Ellen show, had her 5 minutes of fame, over. So this girl is having way more than 15 minutes of fame. However, Rose is still sure that there's more than what meets the eye, that there is something going on, something shady, something fishy with this girl, and she goes on the most ridiculous, unhinged, batshit crazy quest with can never remember his name. With the guy, the love interest, the main guy. I did love him, but yeah, it's the most insane book I've read, and I love it. The next book is Our Wives Under the Sea. Maddie, if you're watching this is for you. This portion of the video is dedicated to my good friend Madison. We actually first bonded over this book. This book follows Mary, whose wife Leah is a researcher who has gone on a deep sea mission, and then they lost contact for 6 months, and then suddenly they resurfaced. They showed up again, except something is definitely different, and Leah is not who Leah used to be. And this book is sad and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and I cried the whole time while reading it. And wow, to love is to be loved, to be seen is to be loved, to be known is to be loved. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, you know, a book is so good and it had me hooked within the first 10 pages that I read a book about the deep sea. Because we do get Leah's perspective in some parts of the book, and she is telling us what she saw down there and what they went through when it was like, you know, no signal, they couldn't connect with the human world. I'm actually terrified of the water. I'm terrified of the deep sea, deep oceans, all that. I think we should leave the ocean untouched. I think we know enough about the ocean and we should step back. I ran out of storage. Will this video ever be filmed? That being said, this book had me hooked. It had me gripped. Hook, line, and sinker. This book, Nobody's Surprised, Burn Bright by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I love everything Krista and Becca come out with. Obviously, I adore these girls so much. But I truly, objectively think that this book is their best work yet. Follows Ben, who is number 6 out of 7 kids. He is part of the Cobalt Empire. His parents are both billionaires. They're both powerhouses, household names. He's grown up famous. He's grown up with famous siblings and cousins, and he has always felt like the black sheep of his family in comparison to his siblings especially. He's never felt like he belongs. He's never felt like he connects. And in this book, we follow as he moves from Philly, where he's from, to New York, where his brothers live. He doesn't get along at all with one of his brothers. He loves them so dearly, and he knows that they love him. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna move to New York and live with them for a while, and then maybe move somewhere else. Along the journey, he meets Harriet, who he actually knew back from Philly, and she's also moved to New York, and they embark on a friendship. It's friends to lovers, but there's so much love between them from the absolute beginning. As friends and as partners, they're everything to me. And there's just this book, there's so much love in it. That family love, the love between him and his cousins, him and his brothers, him and his sisters, his parents' love for him is so clear. And it's also obviously very special as a longtime reader of Krista and Becca's to get to see many other characters in this book. And it's truly one of their best. And I cannot wait to see what more they come up with. My 2 final books are both pretty sad but hopeful books. I have 32 Days in May, which follows Nadia, who has received a lupus diagnosis, and she has kind of moved to a seaside town that her parents have a house at, and she's living there. And she's kind of become like a part-time farmer. Like, she's left her big corporate job because she's become too sick for it. And she's kind of a farmer, but she's also really struggling with just the everyday life, just with getting out of bed, with living really, until she ends up meeting Marco, who she actually gets introduced to by a common person in their lives. And Marco's like he refers to himself as a K-list actor, and they form a friendship, and they decide to do I think the movie is called 28 Days in November kind of situation, where they'll date for the 31 days of May, but they'll never kind of ask personal questions about each other. And at the end of the month, they'll just go their separate ways, and they'll just it's not a long-term thing, it's not a serious thing, but they bonded and connected so much on their first date that they were like, I'm not gonna let go of this, but also I can't hold on to it for many reasons. Nadia very much sees her lupus diagnosis as a death sentence. She is, again, she's really struggling to just get out of bed. As somebody who is chronically ill, throwback to me having a health crisis 10 minutes ago, this book made me sob. I literally sobbed my way through the book, and I said this in my tier ranking video when I was ranking Marco, and I was like, put a ring on me. Despite the fact that this book only takes place over a month, again, the love is palpable, the love is tangible in this book, and it's not just between Nadia and Marco, it's between everybody in their lives. Nadia and her sister have such an interesting relationship, which I think is some of the most accurate portrayal of a healthy, abled sibling to a disabled sibling, especially when the disability occurs as an adult, when it's sudden, when it's unexpected, nobody else in the family has this disability, and then it gets tossed onto you. But I truly think there must be some sort of magic in this book or something. It was so good. I really want people to read it. I recently saw the author post that she felt like she hasn't gotten much support from her publisher, which has led to the book not doing as well as she would have hoped, or as well as they would have hoped. And I'm just like, how do I force everybody to read it? One more book. Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. Is anybody surprised? No. This book, I'm getting emotional. This book follows Lenny, whose best friend Lou has passed away recently. And she is basically living her life, avoiding her parents, avoiding anybody who's concerned about her, avoiding friends, avoiding going back to the apartment that she shared with Lou. And she is a nanny to this beautiful, gorgeous little girl. She ends up meeting Miles, who is the little girl's cousin, and they're kind of like a begrudging friendship. Literally getting emotional. Lenny and Miles have my heart and my soul. They have all of me. We find out that Miles has been through a lot of grief in his life, and he's kind of like cracked the code on grief. And he's not like a grief coach or anything like that, but he essentially ends up holding Lenny through her grief and holding her hand and walking with her and by her side as she tries her best to not necessarily heal, but to continue walking through life without Lou by her side. This book is everything and more. It has the beautiful writing, it has the beautiful storytelling, it has a great romance, but it has heart. This book has heart. I don't know if the author has experienced a lot of grief in her life, but it is a love letter to anyone who has lost someone. It is a love letter to anyone who has experienced grief, who has had to wake up and go to work and go to school, maybe, look after their kids, look after their siblings, while feeling like a massive chunk of their heart is missing. I find it really difficult to talk about this book. Clearly, I've mentioned it in my last two videos, and I cried while mentioning it in my last two videos, and I'm gonna cry again while editing this. It's a cycle. It keeps on happening. Why did I decide to end the video on this book? It's a book full of heart and soul and love in all forms, and Lou is so present. She's the heart of the book, really. Like, the book is for Lou, it's about Lou, it's magic, and it's beautiful, and it's heartbreaking, and I think we all deserve a Miles in our life, but we also all deserve a Lenny in our life. This book is I don't say personification, but it's not a person, it's a bookification of what is grief if not love persevering, what is grief if not so much love with nowhere to go, missing a part of you and loving them so much, and you don't know where to go with it, and you don't know where to put it down. And Miles, I know I keep on saying this, but it's just like he is a heart of gold. I can't believe they're fictional characters. They felt so real for me. Conversation between Lenny and her mom when she finally picks up her mom's calls. The way her mom talks about Lou, the way Miles opens up slowly but surely, the friends they make along the way, the little girl, I keep on calling her little girl because I don't know how to say her name, I'm sorry. The girl's mom, so Miles' sister, their relationship, why Miles came into the picture so late in life, everything about it. I'm not doing the best job of like explaining the book, but I hope I'm doing a good job of selling it, because if there's one, actually, like, from all the books I mentioned today, if you want to laugh, I would say go with Assistant to the Villain. If you want a story with like deep substance and like mythology, storytelling, folklore, all that, I would say Sunrise on the Reaping, or any of the Legend-Born books in order though. But if I could just like recommend you one book, if you could leave this video being like, I've added this book to my TBR immediately, it's going to be Promise Me Sunshine. Obviously, really sad book. Be careful of what point in your life you read it. But I keep on saying this, and I'm going to keep on saying this. It is a book so full of love, so full of heart, so full of soul, and I want everybody to read it, but I also don't want anybody else to read it because it's mine. And Cara Bastone's next book comes out on my birthday. That's fate. This book, A 32 Days in May, came into my life when I needed them the most. I think for the past 3 years, I've been looking for these two books, and I'm so like privileged that I have gotten to meet them, that I have them in my life now. I do think once I own these books, once they're published in Australia, I also think they're going to be books that are like absolutely battered from how many times I've reread them, and I want to lend them to everybody, and I want to buy like 100 of it and put it in every single local library so more people can reach it. And I want this author to keep on writing forever. I've also never read anything more because he's broken my heart enough. We got a bit sad and mellow at the end, but those are the books I read this year that have left like the longest lasting impact on me, obviously. I really hope while watching this video you've been able to see the love I have for them. I know we went from like a very lighthearted book like Say a Little Prayer to something very sad like Promise Me Sunshine. I love books. I love reading. Reading's so beautiful. Getting emotional. End of the year just gets emotional. And I hope you guys liked this video. I really hope you liked this video. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you probably soon. I've been on a roll, y'all.